In August 2014, a 58-year-old man from southern Florida sat at his computer and launched a specific web browser using software known as Tor. This tool allowed him to navigate the surface web with complete anonymity and provided access to the hidden, labyrinthine world known as the dark web. Cloaked in this digital invisibility, he began the meticulous task of uploading the files necessary to create his own website. However, unlike many who use the dark web for cybercrime or illicit trade, this man had a far more sinister intention. His site, named The Playpen, aimed to compile the largest collection of child exploitation material ever seen. A few months later, The Playpen caught the attention of the FBI during Operation Pacifier, one of the most extensive global efforts against child exploitation. The FBI claimed to have known about the site's existence from the beginning, but they couldn't act until they had pinpointed the location of its servers, and consequently, its owner. The breakthrough came after a tip-off from Interpol, following a chilling discovery made by a casual internet user. This individual accidentally stumbled upon the site while attempting to access another computer's IP address. Instead of reaching their intended destination, they were confronted with a horrifying sight, a vast repository of child exploitation material displayed openly under the Playpen's banner. In February 2015, the FBI finally tracked the servers to a home in Naples, Florida. In a decisive early morning raid, they identified the site's operator as Stephen W. Chase. Facing the grim reality of life in a federal prison's protective custody, Chase decided to cooperate fully with the authorities. He provided them with unrestricted access to his devices and hard drives, which contained a treasure trove of information about other individuals involved in these heinous activities. However, instead of shutting the Playpen down immediately, the FBI made a controversial decision. They kept it running. From February 19 to March 4, 2015, the FBI, not Chase, operated one of the most active child exploitation forums on the dark web. Agents went to great lengths to imitate Chase's writing style and vocabulary, ensuring that users believed the site was still under his control. During this 2-week period, the site's user base grew by more than 30% as more people flocked to this growing hub of depravity. Meanwhile, FBI cybercrime experts used a malware-based technique to hack into the computers of those who visited the site, revealing personal information that could lead to their arrests. By the time the Playpen was finally shut down, the FBI, in collaboration with international law enforcement agencies, had arrested nearly 1,000 individuals worldwide. Several of these arrests led to swift convictions, dealing a significant blow to the global trade of child exploitation material. The public initially celebrated the operation's success, but as more details emerged, including the FBI's continued operation of the site after Chase's arrest, widespread outrage followed. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, an organization advocating for online civil liberties, sharply criticized the FBI for essentially engaging in the very crime they were supposed to prevent. Critics argued that the FBI not only kept the site running but also improved its speed, navigation, and accessibility. The FBI defended their actions, asserting that their primary goal was to capture as many perpetrators as possible and rescue exploited children around the world. However, this operation wasn't without significant missteps. In one case, their aggressive tactics allowed a predator to escape prosecution. The FBI had secured a search warrant that was limited to the Eastern District of Virginia, but their malware indiscriminately collected data from every user who visited the site. When this was revealed, at least one suspect was released without charges due to the invalidity of the warrant. This incident raised serious questions about the FBI's conduct. Assistant Federal Defender Peter Adolph presented evidence that, under the FBI's management, the Playpen distributed thousands of videos, images, and links to illegal content. Adolf supported his claims with messages from site users who praised how well the site functioned during the FBI's covert operation. In 2019, the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit weighed in on the FBI's actions. In the case United States versus Anzalone, the court described the operation as bordering on outrageous government conduct that violated due process. The court argued that by operating the playpen, the FBI had distributed illegal material to hundreds of thousands of individuals, with no control over its subsequent use. Despite this, the court did not dismiss the charges. While acknowledging that running a child exploitation website was far from ideal, they also recognized the reality that another site would quickly replace it. The FBI believed the benefits of continuing the operation outweighed the risks, leading to the arrest of hundreds of dangerous individuals and the rescue of numerous exploited children. But the lingering question remains: when do the ends cease to justify the means? In 2009, Gilberto Valle was a 25-year-old police officer residing with his elderly father in Queens, New York City. As you might expect, being in law enforcement demanded most of his time and energy, leaving him with little opportunity for much else. After exhausting 14-hour shifts, his only desire was to collapse into bed and sleep deeply. On his days off, the exhaustion persisted, making it difficult for him to socialize. This left Gilberto in a difficult situation. He yearned for a romantic relationship but couldn't find the time to pursue one in person. So, he turned to the online dating platform OkCupid. It was through this site that Gilberto met Kathleen Mangan, an elementary school teacher who had recently moved to East Harlem. Their connection was immediate, and after a few months of dating, they decided to move in together, settling into a small one-bedroom apartment near 88th Street and 3rd Avenue. It was wonderful at first, Kathleen later recalled. We laughed a lot. He was always a gentleman. But things changed drastically after she became pregnant. When Kathleen broke the news, she expected Gilberto to be thrilled, but instead, he seemed stricken. He kept repeating, "I can't do this. I can't do this," Kathleen explained. However, after calming down, he reassured her parents that he would take responsibility. This apparent change of heart brought Kathleen some relief, but it didn't last long. Gilberto's initial enthusiasm for fatherhood quickly faded. He distanced himself so gradually that I almost didn't notice, Kathleen said. One day, he just seemed completely disinterested. Many attributed Gilberto's behavior to the pressures of new parenthood, but he seemed to counter that narrative when he moved his family into a larger two-bedroom apartment and became more involved in their lives. However, Kathleen soon realized that this renewed attention was nothing but a pretense. She often overheard him having conversations in the early morning hours, and when she questioned him, he would dismiss her concerns, claiming he was catching up with old friends. Kathleen's suspicions deepened when, in early 2012, she caught Gilberto frantically deleting his internet search history. He quickly minimized the browser when she entered the room, pretending to be engaged in something else. It wasn't until Kathleen decided to install spyware on their home computer that she discovered the horrifying truth. Over the next few weeks, the spyware tracked Gilberto's online activities, revealing secrets far darker than Kathleen had ever imagined. When she finally uncovered the truth, it was much worse than she had anticipated. After reading a string of saved messages, she fled to her mother's house with their baby daughter, not looking back. A day later, she received a call from a close friend, also in law enforcement, warning her not to return home under any circumstances. It turned out that in the spring of 2012, Gilberto Valle had been frequenting websites devoted to what he described as dark fetishes. On one of these sites, he connected with an unnamed male user, with whom he exchanged messages discussing the abduction and murder of his wife, Kathleen. In their conversations, They talked about putting her on the spit, a phrase believed to refer to roasting her alive over an open fire and consuming her flesh. The other user commented that it might be difficult to fit her entire body on the spit, to which Valle responded, "She does look appetizing, though." A further investigation of Gilberto's browser history revealed that he had researched potential abduction sites in upstate New York, places where he planned to carry out his twisted fantasies. He had even looked up how to cook human flesh, how long it takes to suffocate someone with a plastic bag, and the best type of rope for restraining a person for an extended period. Kathleen was so terrified by what she discovered that she reported her husband to the FBI, fearing he might be a serial killer in the making. The FBI took Kathleen's concerns very seriously. Within weeks, they had gathered enough evidence to bring Gilberto in for questioning. Valle attempted to downplay the sinister nature of his conversations, claiming they were nothing more than dark fantasies, but the FBI wasn't convinced. They found further evidence that Valle had been stalking several women, including 2 girls from his high school and a former college roommate, all of whom he had developed a disturbing obsession with. The FBI believed Gilberto Valle had been plotting to kidnap, rape, murder, and cannibalize at least 6 women. When the case went to trial in late 2012, the jury had to decide whether Valle had been genuinely plotting these heinous crimes or if he had merely indulged in a series of sick fantasies. In March 2013, Valle was found guilty of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, facing life in prison. However, his defense garnered some support, with critics arguing that the FBI's case hinged almost entirely on their interpretation of his online conversations, rather than concrete evidence of his intent to carry out his plans. Then, on June 30, 2014, Gilberto Valle's conviction was overturned by a federal judge, who ruled that, disturbing as his online activities were, they amounted to nothing more than thought crimes. Though this decision was a relief for the so-called cannibal cop, his life was irreparably damaged. He lost his job with the NYPD and was forced to move back in with his elderly father. Nearly 10 years later, in January 2023, it was announced that Gilberto Valle had started a business under the name Cannibal Cop Creations, where he writes a macabre blog and sells self-published horror novels to fans of his bizarre brand of erotic horror. It's chilling to think that someone like him remains free, but under our laws, merely imagining a crime isn't enough to convict someone of it. The heartbreaking story of Leonard Thomas is a stark example of how one rash decision can lead to unimaginable tragedy. Leonard, a 30-year-old African-American man, found himself trapped in a terrifying encounter with law enforcement that would forever alter the lives of his loved ones. In the tranquil town of Fife, Washington, Leonard lived with his mother, his young son, and his loyal dog. His world revolved around his family, particularly his 4-year-old son, Elijah. Though Leonard struggled with personal challenges, he was a devoted father who adored his child. One fateful evening in May 2013, a heated argument erupted between Leonard and his mother. In a moment of frustration, Leonard decided to leave the house, taking Elijah with him. He had no intention of causing harm, he simply needed some space to clear his mind. However, his mother, worried about her grandson's safety, dialed 911, hoping the police could intervene and bring Leonard and Elijah home safely. When the police arrived, they found Leonard on the porch with Elijah, trying to regain his composure. The officers attempted to talk to Leonard, but the situation quickly spiraled out of control. Despite Leonard being unarmed and posing no apparent threat, the police called in a SWAT team, drastically escalating the situation. The SWAT team arrived in full tactical gear, their sniper rifles trained on Leonard, who was still holding his son. The overwhelming presence of armed officers only intensified Leonard's fear and confusion. Hours passed in tense negotiation, But the ordeal took a tragic turn when an officer claimed to see Leonard reaching for his dog. Mistakenly believing Leonard intended to use the dog as a weapon, the officer fired a single shot, killing Leonard instantly. His mother and son witnessed the horrific event unfold before their eyes. In the wake of Leonard's death, his family embarked on a painful quest for justice. They filed a lawsuit against the city, arguing that the police had used excessive force and had failed to genuinely attempt to de-escalate the situation. The case garnered national attention, igniting discussions about the use of SWAT teams in non-violent situations and the broader issue of police violence against African Americans. In 2017, after years of legal battles, Leonard's family was awarded $15 million in a settlement with the city of Fife. Although the settlement provided a measure of justice, it could never replace the loving father and son who had been so tragically lost. Leonard's story remains a sorrowful reminder of how fear and misunderstanding can lead to devastating consequences, highlighting the critical need for police reform and better de-escalation training. In August 2015, unsettling whispers began to emerge in the shadowy corners of the internet. On platforms like 4chan, Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter, a group of self-proclaimed militants claimed to have captured several ISIS fighters. They promised a live-streamed event on the dark web, where they would torture and kill these captives. Their intentions were announced on a rudimentary, monochrome website that delivered a chilling message: "We're working tirelessly in a war zone, but we will deliver on our promise. Expect interactive torture and games, all completely free. The first hour will be family-friendly, but we won't hold back. Torture will lead to death. Red rooms are a tough business, and few can handle it, but we will make them stars." The rumors spread like wildfire, and soon, subreddits like r/darkweb and r/tor began counting down to the start of the livestream. Subscriber numbers soared, not necessarily due to bloodlust, but out of curiosity, a desire to see if the darkest legends of the deep web were true. The dark web, often called the deep web, is a collection of websites hidden from standard search engines and almost impossible to trace. This anonymity attracts those interested in illicit activities. Some claim it's a haven for predators, hosting everything from gladiatorial death matches to horrific World War II-style experiments. But among these dark tales, the legend of Red Rooms is the most disturbing. Live, interactive executions broadcast from the deepest recesses of the dark web. But do these Red Rooms really exist? Eileen Ormsby, an Australian journalist who spent years researching the dark web, is quick to dismiss the idea. She acknowledges that some crimes have been broadcast live on the dark web, like the infamous Daisy's destruction by Australian child abuser Peter Scully, but Red Rooms for live executions? She finds the notion absurd. The FBI has investigated many dark web cases, including child exploitation, narcotics trafficking, and contract killing, but Red Rooms have never been part of the equation. If they were real, why hasn't a single piece of concrete evidence surfaced on the regular internet? Around the early 2010s, when Red Room rumors began, a new form of short horror story known as creepypasta was gaining popularity online. Stories like Jeff the Killer, Candle Cove, Smile Dog, and Slender Man spread across forums and social media, blending horror with the internet's inherent culture of copy-pasting. Reddit users, in response to this trend, created the No Sleep Forum, dedicated to hosting these stories. Initially, No Sleep was seen as a creative writing space, but when its moderators banned any mention of fiction or creative writing, the forum's popularity exploded, reaching millions of subscribers. Visitors appreciated the blurb between truth and fiction, reveling in the thrill of potentially true stories, just as those who believed in Red Rooms wanted them to be real. A British hacker, known as Thulu, claimed to have found several Red Rooms on the dark web, but they were all scams. he discovered that these sites had minimal security and were designed to trick users into paying exorbitant fees, only to be met with a blank screen or an error message when the supposed live stream was about to begin. The ISIS Red Room? It turned out to be a hoax. After a suspenseful countdown, the live stream showed a well-groomed prisoner being force-fed bacon, far from the gruesome spectacle promised. The site was later replaced by a notice claiming it had been seized by law enforcement, though the amateurish nature of the notice raised doubts. A similar site appeared days later, but it too was a farce. The lack of evidence has led many to believe that red rooms are nothing more than an urban legend. However, in 2020, 2 Italian teenagers were arrested for attempting to access an online execution room called the Hell of Horrors, which allegedly contained thousands of rooms dedicated to unspeakable acts. The boys were released without charges, but the case suggests that some authorities are taking the threat of red rooms seriously. The concept of red rooms has been around for over a century. H. G. Wells' 1894 short story The Red Room told of a haunted bedroom in a Gothic castle. The term appeared in the 1977 book The Amityville Horror and the novel 50 Shades of Grey, where it described a BDSM room. In 1999, Japanese director Daisuke Yamanouchi's horror film Red Room depicted prisoners forced to endure escalating tortures. By the time red rooms became an internet legend, the term had long been associated with places where evil occurs. But the scariest thing about red rooms might be that they could become real. In a world where truth is increasingly difficult to discern, where online spaces are so far removed from reality, belief can make even the most terrifying myths real. If enough people believe in red rooms, it might only be a matter of time before someone turns this dark legend into a horrifying reality.